Continuing with lesson 3, we're going to be importing an Adobe Illustrator file. And Illustrator files are vector-based graphics. And what does that mean? That's a mathematical description of shapes rather than drawn pixels. So the last ones that we worked with that came in from Photoshop, those were raster or pixel-based is another term. Type image. So they only have so much data. So if you scale them up, they'll start looking bad after a while. However, if you're using a vector-based image, you can scale it, and they're really good for logos or maybe movie titles. So you can make them as big or as small as you need them, and they don't lose any of their quality. However, when we do bring it into Adobe Premiere, it is going to do something called rasterization. So it is going to make it pixel-based for it to work with. But you can still have your original Illustrator file, and if you had to make adjustments, you could repeat the process to get it updated to be larger. But hopefully you made it the right size for your project to begin with. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this. We're going to come over here to our project panel. Click so your theft unexpected bin becomes unhighlighted, and then do a double click here in this empty area. It's going to launch our import settings just like we did before, and now we are going to look for theft unexpected layer bin. Oh, I'm sorry. The layer bin was what we just clicked off of. I got back in my numbers of reading. Okay, so we've already opened it. We are in lessons, assets, and graphics. We've already done that. So now we're looking for Bright Love Film logo. It's an AI file, which means it's Illustrator. Choose this one and say open. If it did have layers in it, unlike the Photoshop files, it is going to get flattened each time when it comes in. We can go ahead and double click this and it will appear up here in our source bin so we can see what we have. If you notice that there is some black text, anytime an Illustrator file comes in, it's going to come in with a transparent background where there's no data filled in. So some of this black doesn't work the best on the background that we have because Adobe Premiere also keeps a black background. But again, you could put a color behind it, or if you're putting it on top of footage, it will show up a lot nicer. Okay. Another thing that we can do is import subfolders. So if you've already built folder structure for specific files or graphics and you want to bring the entire folder structure in to here, you can do that. So let's go ahead and go to list view. I think it'll be a little bit easier to see once we do it. We're going to come up here and we're using another way to bring files in. We've done this 1 or 2 times before, but we go to File, Import, and we are going to choose Lessons, Assets, and then Stills. But instead of double clicking and going into the Stills folder, we're going to stay here and we're going to choose Import Folder on a PC, or it's just Import if you're on a Mac. Go ahead and click that and it's actually going to populate that entire Stills folder. It made it into a bin here in our project panel. Notice it has a little drop down arrow. If you click that, you can now see we have city and eagle photos, and you can drop down and open up what was in each of these folders. So that was a really fast way to bring in multiple files instead of doing one at a time, and they kept their nice organizational folder structure. Sorry, I guess it's been a long day today. Okay, so something else you can look at is the libraries panel, and this is a way to also organize content that you're designing or trying to share assets between projects or users. So that's stuff that you own yourself, or you can navigate through the Adobe stock in here as well, and that would be Explore Libraries, I believe. And all the Adobe stock stuff you can bring in and utilize in your project as a low resolution preview. So it's not going to be of high quality, but if you like it and it works for your project, Adobe does offer the options to purchase those. So that's one way to get additional material if you don't have it yourself. And you can also search the stock stuff, and you can put parameters such as photos or videos and other options. Okay, so we've covered a bunch of import stuff. One of the other things that we need to talk about is our preferences for our media cache. So you would want to come up to Edit and choose Preferences, and then come down here to Media Cache. That's on Windows, and if you were on a Mac, you would go to Premiere Pro, Preferences, Media Cache, and it's very similar. So let's go ahead and open that one. And you now get some more of your preferences for your project. Right now, you can see this here is a type of file. The reason we're talking about this is anytime we have to make a CFA or a peak file, they are going to populate in a specific area. And if you noticed here, both my catch database and catch files are going to generalized folders. That means they're all going to live in one spot. And that's good for me because I'll go in and clean those out periodically, especially when I finish a project. But they do eventually take up space. So if you only have one drive on your computer, this is something that you want to be mindful of, because if you wonder why your computer is getting full and you don't know what it is and you don't have a lot of files saved, you might have put too much stuff into these catch folders. So you may need to browse, and if you're working on external devices, you may want to choose these to match up to save these cache files in the same place as your original footage, so they're not bulking down your user app data and stuff. They have a specific path. But the other thing you can do is once you are done with something, or after so many days, you could choose delete after 90 days, or when it exceeds a certain amount of size, you can come in here and choose that. Right now it's at do not delete at all, automatically, like you have to do it manually, but this is a way to clean it out, or you could navigate to these folders and clean them out as well. Just some more mystery stuff hidden in the background. And to try to understand this a little bit more, when we did an import file to our project panel, the bigger ones had to have a little bar over here, and they processed audio files like peak files and whatever else. They ran like a little generate these cache files, and on the bigger files you might actually see that bar moving down there. So that's what it's talking about, and this is how you would clean it up. All right, we're going to hit cancel on that. The book was covering where it was and how to clean and keep it organized. Okay, one of the very last things that lesson 3 is talking about for us is recording a voiceover. And this is something that comes in very handy if you are wanting to add dialogue to maybe some graphics, such as the stuffed unexpected stills that we have, or if you were doing a cooking video and it was just pictures and you needed to give directions, you could do a voiceover instead of graphics. You do need some sort of external mic that is recording into your computer system for this to actually work. A lot of us have web cameras. Those do have microphones. Those could be used. The quality on those sometimes are not as great as a little bit fancier microphone, but it just depends on what you're using it for. Also, you want to be mindful if you're recording directly to your computer that the room itself doesn't have too much room tone, or the fans on your computer are too loud and you're getting a lot of feedback. All right, so recording directly into Adobe Premiere with a microphone. notice that this A1 track has a little microphone symbol right here. If you hover over it, it says voiceover recording. I went ahead and made my track taller, so when I do have a waveform here, you guys will be able to see it a little bit better. I'm going to come here and click the voiceover recording button, and it gives me a countdown. And as I talk, it will record until I am done talking. I also have my microphone or headset playback muted, or you need headphones in. I went ahead and stopped it so you can see that it created a waveform that whole time I was talking, and I wasn't expecting it just to go. I was thinking I had to do some more setup. I don't use this feature all that much in Premiere, but it is great when you have to fix something or add some dialogue. So one of the other things I was mentioning is you want to make sure your speakers are off if you have speakers on, so they don't create a feedback loop while you're recording, or you could put headphones in while you're talking into the microphone to avoid that feedback and then have it on as well. You can also make sure that the correct microphone is chosen for doing these recordings. So instead of left clicking like I did to activate it, I'd right click and then I would go to voiceover recording settings. And this here is showing my source. It's also kind of giving us a test meter as I'm talking here to see how loud it is. So you could probably change some of your settings, or if you need to talk louder, you could just basically come in here and choose which input you needed as far as source. And once you have what you need, you hit close. You can also change like how long the countdown was. The 3 seconds was fine. The book did talk about keeping the playhead at the very beginning when we were recording. And if I was trying to mix more than one track, so if I recorded maybe some vocals and I wanted to record a second set of vocals, I could add a second audio track here, and I could come back to the beginning and make sure the track was engaged. Notice how there's 2 blue sections here. Those would also have to be chosen on A2, but I could record at the same place as this first one, and then I could mix the 2 together with my editing techniques. And the other chapters will get more into multiple audio layers, but you can record multiple ones. You can stop and start. So if I was happy with what I had here, I could bring the playhead over, hit the record button again, and do another chunk here as well. This green file that was made, it also appeared here as audio 1_1. And since it became part of my project panel because it had to populate it back on our scratch disk information that we've talked about several times already, it also placed a copy of this file into the designated folder that I had mentioned earlier, or designated. All right, with that, we have now made it through lesson 3. I hope you guys have a really good, strong understanding of the interface. And I think in chapter 4, we will be moving on to more organization.